Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast, bringing clarity to optometry business and entrepreneurship. I am your host, Dr. Harbir Sian. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to join me here to learn and to grow. I have an incredible guest. As always, I'm trying to bring on people who can help us, inspire us, and empower us, and help us grow in our businesses, in our profession, in different ways, right? Help us think outside the box. And Dr. Kiran Ramesh, my wonderful guest today, is the perfect person. She leads everything she does with her 4 tenets, which are love, connect, inspire, and empower. And definitely in my experience working with her and connecting with her over the years, I definitely feel that she lives by those. And I've been feeling those 4 tenets from her every time I talk to her. She is a neuro-visual optometrist based in the Toronto area. Her practice was best eye care practice in 2019, and then she was best in training in 2020. From transitions. She is definitely a powerhouse, I think is the word that comes to mind.
Oh
Kiran.
my goodness. You have
I'm so excited to have you on. And I think there's going to be so much value out of this conversation. So thank you so much for coming up, for having me on my podcast. Thank you so much for coming on my podcast.
Thank you for having me. And I'm laughing because I just hosted an event last weekend and I ran into a friend of mine that I haven't seen in about a year. And he literally called me a powerhouse, like used the exact same terms and texted me them. And so I just find that hilarious that,
well, there you go. So
it's
confirmed. If more than one person says it, it's real.
It'll be my new title. Perfect. Confirmed by 2.
That leads perfectly into the first thing I was going to ask you. Like, if you were going to give a bio of yourself, a description of yourself, what would it be? I feel like now powerhouse has to be in there somewhere.
So, and that's what's so funny is because when I was hosting this event, I said, wow, I don't even know what to say because I do a multitude of things. And so I started off with that. I said, well, someone called me a powerhouse. But if I were to give a bio of myself, I think it's what you said. I mean, everything I do is I love, connect, inspire, and empower. Those are the 4 values I use to run my practice. Those are the 4 values I use to bring anyone into my practice. I mean, if you don't have those, you can't be working with me. Those are the 4 values I use in my friend circle, in my home. It's the 4 values that resonate most with me. And that basically qualify as to who I am or indicate who I am. So I think I would just use that.
That's awesome. Love, connect, inspire, empower. And I think that's probably going to pop in throughout our conversation. And you can kind of say, this is how those 4 tenets have helped, in this area of your career. Because you do have so many different things going on in your career, aside from, being an optometrist, being a mother. You have your own consulting firm now, and these other things, working with industry. There's so many things that you're doing. So really, definitely an inspiration as well. But let's start somewhere a little bit different.
Sure.
I talked to you about this offline as well. This episode is, this conversation we're having is coming just off the heels of a series of conversations I've had with, I think there's 6 of them, about the future of Canadian optometry, where I interviewed sort of the heads of or people in the leadership roles of certain organizations, FYI doctors, Specsavers, Luxottica, Essilor, so on, Iris, to kind of ask them, some direct questions about what do you think is going on in Canada? Where do you think your company is going, and what's the future look like? And I know that you, with everything that you do and how involved you are in the industry, I'm sure you have some interesting thoughts. I'd love to hear those, if you wouldn't mind sharing some juicy gossip.
Some juicy gossip. Well, in some of the conversations I've had with industry, I think it's becoming a bit obvious, or even if we look to what has happened across the world with, if we use something like Specsavers, for example, coming into Canada, they've really commoditized the eye exam, right? So an eye exam, they're not doing anything wrong. They're doing a proper eye exam, a comprehensive eye exam where they're doing OCTs on everyone. So in terms of commoditizing, meaning they put a value to it, which what we consider comprehensive eye exams. So now I think everyone needs to ask themselves, like, you need to ask yourself, what's included in your eye exam? Why is it any different than what they're doing? And I know in our practice, that's what we've started to do is what value are we putting in that a patient is actually going to get through our eye exam? How can we justify the cost of our eye exam compared to if someone went to something like Specsavers, or in general. And in the past, it was like if someone went to Hakeem, or if they went to any other clinic, right? And it's never about the competition. I never focus on the competition. It's being aware of what you can do internally and what's better for your patients. And I think all of us, like you do dry eye, right? There's dry eye, there's VT, there's low vision, there's myopia control. So what can you even do within your practice, not knowing that these people were coming, to really enhance the value of what it is that you provide? And I think that needs to be the key, is that comprehensive eye exam needs to be all encompassing, and you need to be able to convey that message of what your eye exam includes, and just make sure it does include more than what anyone else has.
Yeah, I definitely think that concern about the commoditizing and devaluation potentially of kind of what an eye exam is, right? So if you say we do a comprehensive eye exam, but we charge half of what everybody else charges, it's going to raise some eyebrows. Patients are going to wonder, why is there such a difference?
Absolutely.
So that does put a bit of pressure on everyone else. When you're a large organization and you can afford to have your eye exam set at a certain number, lower number, it puts pressure on everyone else. And generally, the pressure means everybody else brings their price down, or at least that's the assumption that what would happen. But
and they've got the money to market, right? So you need to just make sure you're marketing with every phone call that's coming in. Are you actually conveying what you provide, right? And I think that's the key. So in my clinic, we barely market externally. We did it a long time ago, but it's like in life where you talk about what makes the biggest change. The biggest change is when you work on yourself internally. So same with your clinic. When you work on your internal clinic, you are going to get far more big changes as opposed to just constantly looking outside of yourself.
Oh, I like that. I like that connection to the
deep,
self.
Right?
That's deep. That's the kind of stuff I love. That's perfect. See, think of your clinic as a being, and you got to work internally on the being. Beautiful. Beautiful.
Absolutely.
So there we go. This is why I have you on. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about your clinic. You're a neuro-visual optometrist. I want to know a little bit more about what that means, and what type of services you offer in your practice.
Wow. So should we start from maybe where I started and what got me there? Because it might make more sense. Yeah. And I think it'll flow a little bit nicely with the internal being. So, graduated, did optometry, became an optometrist, did I think what most people did originally, which was just primary care, come in, get your eyes tested, go home. It was I only had like 3 team members when I bought my clinic. And then, I had my babies, things plateaued. Like I was, everything was going up, things plateaued. And then I came back into the practice. When I came back into the practice, just being back, it was a whole flood of patients. And I thought, okay, you know what? I need more space. I want to expand. And so I looked at more space and I thought, wait a minute, what am I going to do with this space? And binocular vision was something that was always enticing. And so from there, I realized I had learning issues, and that got me even more involved. And that's what got me into vision training and vision therapy. And I think I call myself a neuro-visual optometrist because everything I do now is with the brain and the eyes. And so, if you call yourself just an optometrist, it's just, I feel like we need to, again, value more of who we are and what we can provide.
Right.
And so, I started doing that, expanded my clinic. We now have 11 team members. From there, it's just gone on. We do myopia control. We do dry eye. We do nutrition. I would like to bring low vision in next. And that being said, I don't do all of that. That's not my passion. My passion is neurovisual optometry, vision therapy. I had my own issues. I can relate to patients. I can talk to patients about that. I have other doctors that are passionate about dry eye and nutrition because that's what their internal being tells them. They were worried about the world and their health. And so that drove them into that. I have another one that specializes in myopia control. So everyone sort of does their own niche based on who they are as a person. So even within our team, we ask everyone, who are you as a person? What did you want to do as a child? What do you love? And then we intertwine their role with who they are. And then from there, we expand it out, and that's how we got larger.
Wow, that's awesome. So definitely a few things to kind of unpack there. One, I always assumed you just did the BV stuff from day one, but you didn't, right? So you brought that in later. And also I assumed that you knew about, you mentioned earlier that you had your own binocular vision sort of issues I thought maybe you knew about that earlier too, but you also only discovered that after you started practicing? Wow.
Yeah. And that's what's funny, right? After going through school, you think something like that would have been caught, but absolutely no. It was, I was here and I started taking these courses, and then you're hearing all these symptoms beyond, I think, what you're taught in school. And I'm thinking to myself, oh my God. And then I actually went in, saw a colleague, had an evaluation done, I had a major CI, had issues with my fusional reserves, and went for training. And it's just, I think, crazy on how it changed how I practice, how it changed who I am as a person. And whereas before it was like practice, 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 just, go do. And that's where a lot of it was external marketing and all that. And then, once I realized how I changed myself, everything stopped. I started giving myself breaks and started to empower my own team, started to empower myself, and literally took a whole turn onto how I started doing optometry, and then started to become the voice of VT for Canada. Yeah. So Vision Therapy Canada, which at that time was called Canadian Optometrists for Vision Therapy and Rehabilitation, asked me to be the board of directors. And I said, I don't know if this is what I'm interested in, because I don't like politics, but they created a role for me, the Director of Internal and External Affairs. They know that that's what I love to do. So I went across Canada, and that's where I met you. I'd go across the different provinces. Then I started doing lectures. And so I started speaking at the association meetings, really got the word across, grew Vision Therapy Canada grew their annual gala by pretty much doubled how many people attend. Actually, no, I grew it by almost 80%. I have numbers. I can't remember them, but I grew their sponsorship, grew everything. And it was great because the world started to understand it wasn't even just optometrists, but it was industry. Industry started to understand what vision therapy was. So that was really cool.
As you were speaking, I was like, yes, that's where we met. BCDO, I remember there was a booth and you were there, and then you definitely around that same time, I imagine it was with a lot of the stuff you were doing that my interest was piqued. Now, I don't do any BV still, as I've started to venture into some other spaces and specialties, but definitely that's always on my mind, as it seems like maybe one of the most, if not the most impactful thing that I could do as an optometrist is potentially help, so many people who have these underlying issues. So good to know. I'll likely...
Yeah, and you know what, though? I think everything that we do can impact, like here you're working with the brain, right? So you can really impact someone's life. But with dry eye or with nutrition, you're impacting someone's lifestyle. You're impacting their being, their well-being. So like there's so much in every discipline that we do that can really change how people function, right?
Yeah. So your practice, in that period of time, what was that roughly timeline from, when you came back from your maternity leave and you felt like things were kind of plateaued, to kind of going back up in a trajectory again? What was that? How long was that?
2014 to 2017. It was just like, I expanded, went from 2,000 square feet to 4,000 square feet, went straight up, opened up the VT practice, went from one therapist to 3 therapists. And 2017 was when I started going around and speaking. 2017, 2018. Was it when I started going around and speaking, and
And there's clearly been consistently growth areas of your practice. As you said, you've brought in other doctors, and with these awards, the best eye care practice, best in training. There's constantly growth and success, if you want to call it that. Are there like a few things that you can distill over from that 2014 onward, things that you did or implemented or psychological changes, however you want to phrase it, that really helped that growth? If somebody wanted to like think differently, approach it differently, what would you say?
Well, starting from when you start small, so when you're in a small practice, one of the things, and you're the only owner, what happens is like every little thing, the light bulb needs to be changed or anything, people start coming to you. And so one of the first things I did was I started to stop and booked out about 3 hours of my schedule, which was in the middle of the week, and time for me. So it was time for me to decide, okay, what do I need to do for my practice? Where do I want some growth? Or there was within that time, probably a half hour, an hour allocated when people could come ask me questions. So that took away all of the excess. And it became to the point where, because it was once a week, sometimes what they would have come to me before, it was already resolved. So that was one of the things. The other thing I started to do was I empowered my team to, if they had an issue, was tell me what the issue is, come up with a solution, and then I'll just approve it. So I was no longer coming up with the actual answers. So now it was yes or no, which was fantastic because it empowers them to decide, yeah, they're capable of actually making these decisions. I think those were two of the biggest things that I started to do. And then it was once we actually started to grow it, realizing that, you need a manager, you need someone to actually run the practice. And from there, it was the manager and I that would take that time. And we'd always set up once a week, we'd set up a meeting and say, okay, what are our goals? We'd start with the beginning of the year and what are our goals? What are going to be our KPIs? What do we want to achieve? What do we want to achieve by the end of the year? And then we would work with the industry and say, okay, here's what we want to achieve. What do you want to see from us? And then we started creating all these goals and we would get everyone involved. And then that made the biggest changes.
I like that, empowering the staff to kind of come up with solutions, and rather than you having to be the one to problem solve, they can solve it, and almost puts you in a little more of like a CEO type of a position where it's like, I'm just kind of making sure things are working well. And then the office manager thing, I have to say, definitely something that in our office has made a big difference. I know since we spoke, I don't know what it was, a year or so ago, about these types of things, we've started to implement more of that. And that's made a massive, massive change in having, someone who can take care of a lot of those issues that kind of bog you down a little bit on the day to day. So you can think a little bigger, think on how you can grow your practice. That's been huge. It's been invaluable. That person feels, I feel like, because we have two practices, we have an office manager in each office now. I think that person truly values their job in the office more too, when they're empowered to take on more responsibility.
And one of the things for me too was cutting down my meeting times. So I was no longer seeing anyone where, let me introduce what's new in the industry and stuff. It was go through the manager first. Let's, see what needs to come to me. So I got to come in and actually see my patients, which is what I wanted to do. And then I got to go in, have a meeting, and then, everything would come to me. It literally is like you're a CEO. Well, here's what's new on this product. Here's what's here. And then I'm just yay or nay on what's going to come in.
It's good to know. And I think that's, for me, especially when you talk about, the KPIs, working with your manager on the KPIs, the goals that you have for 6 months or a year or whatever it might be. And then actually going to industry and seeing how we can partner with them or they can partner with us, or however you want to look at it, to grow that. That's really cool. I think that's something that, again, looking at it like you're looking at it like a CEO, which I think many of us don't do, as optometrists. We don't look at our practice, which is a business and we are the CEO of. We don't look at it that way. And we need to start doing that.
Absolutely.
Actually, well, on that note, one of the questions I was going to ask you later, but seems to be kind of on track now, is, we come out of school. This is such a common, I think if you ask 10 ODs, I bet you 9 would say this. Like, what is the weak point when you come out of school? Or what's the one thing you felt not so confident in or didn't get enough training in? And it would be business. I imagine most people would say that, we kind of lack that business acumen as optometrists coming out of school. And many of us do want to be business owners. How do you suggest that we, as individuals, and not necessarily within our clinic, how do we kind of start to flex that or strengthen that business muscle?
Start from the bottom and then work your way to the top. Does that sound like a rap song?
Yeah, it's Drake. I think that's Drake.
Start from the bottom, now I'm here. The nice thing about having students come in is you're empowering them to become business owners. So what I did was I literally went into our practice as a student and was hired as receptionist. And within that summer, they taught me how to be an optician, how to do everything in the practice. By next year, I was a manager in the practice. And I think it's really important as an owner to have every hat. So once you have worn every hat, you understand how a business should run, what worked for you, what didn't work. Because unfortunately, as a doctor, you're in this room and you have no idea what's happening out there sometimes, right? Yeah. So that really taught me to understand every area, what flowed really well. And then by the time I got into practice, I knew exactly what I wanted. So I walked in and I said, I'll work here if I can become part owner. And then when I started working, I was able to literally go and I could tell each team member, yeah, I understand where the weak parts are. And then we would work together and make them stronger. And the reason why I can is because I've done that job. And I think that really helps. And even during the pandemic, when everything had to shut down, our practice was still open because we had to see emergencies, but with limited team members, just me and my manager, yet we could still do every role because we've done it in the past. Right. So, even right now, my manager's away for a month, Case. She's been gone for a month. Everything I've taught her, she had to teach me again, because you forget. But the thing, it's second nature. It comes back like this, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's very important, I think, to know all of those different areas, because then you see what's missing, what could be better. You can relate to your team members, and like when someone comes into the front, who's going to hear the worst of it? It's always going to be your patient care coordinators, right? Because by the time they come see the doctor, they're happy as clams. And so I can show them that, listen, we know this is going to happen. Here are different ways on how you can deal with it. So I think it's really important, if anyone can really get into our practice, start from the bottom, just get that exposure, do all those different roles. Even when I hired my associate, she came in before she got licensed. She came in and I got her to see all the different roles in the practice.
That's really good. That actually helps you understand the ins and outs of the practice and where the weak points could be, where you can make it more efficient.
Right.
That's really good. That's probably something I need to go through.
Yeah. And then honestly, it helps you understand how to run your business better. Because now, again, like we said, you're working on the internal. Now you're going to start working on your dispensing team or your patient care coordinators, or in my case, my therapist, right? Or your contact lens specialist. So you're like, you know what, let's work on these things. And before you know it, your practice is flourishing.
That's good to know. So anybody out there who's looking to improve their business and the way the practice is run, start from the bottom. Go through.
You got it. And it's never too late. Honestly, I will take times where I will go sit at the front, and I feel so bad because everyone gets so intimidated. My manager will come to me after. They're like, they're a little scared. I'm like, I just want to make sure things are still running okay. Things are running the way I want, or that, there's nothing happening that I couldn't make better for them.
Right.
But it's good to take that time every so often, just kind of sit in every person's different area and just see what's happening.
Yeah, I can see how that would be intimidating. And actually, so a little bit of disclosure here, for everybody who's listening and watching. So Dr. Ramesh came into our practice, well, virtually anyways, and helped us with some of the things that we were doing. And speaking of sitting in on somebody and making them a little uncomfortable, I had the pleasure of having Kiran watch me do a few eye exams. And to be honest with you, as something I would highly, highly recommend to any and every optometrist, any business owner. Like after 10 years, 12 years of practicing, I'd actually been thinking about I probably need someone to do this, because you just get so stuck in your ways. It's like driving, right? You pick up bad habits when you drive and you just drive like that. But if you were trying to take a driving test again, you'd probably fail so badly.
It's so true.
Didn't signal, turn too much, this or whatever. But then having you in there was huge, like just little things that you had suggested. And also just the kind of the philosophical approach to kind of pushing your boundaries, putting yourself in an uncomfortable position to help yourself grow. I felt like it was super valuable there. So one, it's I'm, from my perspective as a business owner, to do what you suggested, sit in these different places, perhaps make your staff a little uncomfortable, but also as a business owner, with love, but also as
where that value comes in.
You're going to be uncomfortable too, and push, have someone watch you and make sure you're doing everything well too.
Absolutely. And yeah, to be honest, so when I came in, and this is what I tell people, because I've gone into other practices as well, is they always say, oh my gosh, we were so worried before you got here, but you didn't criticize, you just showcased opportunities, and you were just shining on what's possible. And that's what it's all about. It's doing it with that love and saying that you want someone else to get better. And so, it might feel like it's intimidating, but listen, man, we're just there to support one another.
Yeah. Absolutely. We should be there to support one another, and not trying to compete or compare or judge, exactly. And definitely we felt that the love and the empowerment. So appreciated that. And I think that's a perfect segue to the next thing I wanted to talk about, which was KR Consulting. So you've been doing this for a little while now, where you've taken all your experience, your knowledge, your intellect, and you're helping to support and grow practices and other businesses. I'd love for you to tell me a little bit about how that started and what's been going on with that.
It's funny because during the pandemic, I think what was really funny is I had a lot of industry call me and ask me what was happening, what's going on, what were my thoughts. And then I sat back and I really thought to myself, okay, why is it that they're calling me? What is it that I've done? And it really showcased, okay, I've created something great in my practice, whether it's with my team and the growth patterns, and they see it. I mean, they've got all the numbers of all the clinics that they work with. And so I thought, okay, well, what do I love doing the most? What makes me happy? And it has to do with those values, the love, connect, inspire, and empower. So when I really started to understand what my 4 values were, and I thought, well, why don't I just translate this to support the rest of the industry? To me, what really makes me happy is just other people flourishing. So if you do well, if someone else does well, it to my core, like it just makes me so happy. And so in our mind, the way it actually started was because we had won Best Eye Care Practice of the Year. I congratulated my team and I said, oh, well, what do you guys want to do next year? And they said, oh, we want to win Best in Training. And I thought, well, how do you win Best in Training if we've already won Best Eye Care Practice of the Year? And then I thought, you know what? Why don't I train other practices? And I was kind of disappointed when I was at Academy that Canadians were not showcased as much as Americans. And so my original plan was I wanted to train someone in each province. And as a collaborative team, we would all sort of go up for Best in Training. But then, the pandemic hit. So I was only able to train 2 other practices. But that's sort of how it all started. And I thought, you know what, why don't I just make this an actual business? Because I love it. And going into people's exam rooms, even training my own associate, I train someone else's associate. I love that. And then actually seeing them translate what I've done and seeing the numbers that follow it. Oh my God.
Yeah.
You want to talk about turn-ons? That's a turn-on.
That's awesome. I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And there is the cool thing is there's such a tangible way to measure it, right?
Absolutely.
You can see whether it's contact lens sales or some other conversion or other numbers, you can see very clearly the differences. And from what I've learned from you and our conversations, the great thing is I saw so much value in that. Now I've been talking to our associates about I haven't yet sat in with anyone, but I've offered it now to a few of them and said, look, I'll sit, I'll be quiet. I promise no judgment, but it'll be helpful for both of us. Maybe I'll learn something from you and the way you do something, and maybe I can share some thoughts the other way around. So, and I definitely feel the same in that when someone else succeeds, it gives you some kind of really a feeling you can't replicate, at least as far as I've seen yet. From someone with your level of experience saying that, imagine it is not something that you can replicate in any other way. So that's pretty cool for you to be able to experience that so many times with so many different people. So who do you work with? You work with optometrists? You work with other people as well?
I work with optometrists. I'll work with industry. So industry leaders or companies, whatever I feel I'm connected to. And as long as it's in line with my values, if it's supporting anyone for growth and it's to better anyone, then absolutely. And if it's something I believe in. Yeah.
The one thing I for sure took away from our conversations was connect and direct.
Yes.
So I'd love for you to, if you can, those words are ingrained in my brain. So if you can share with us, what does connect and direct mean? How do we apply that?
Connect is find a way to connect with someone, which in my way is find a way to love someone or anyone that's around you. So the patient walks in, what's the one thing that you like about them? Their hair, their clothing, the fact that they went on vacation and you went on that same place, something. There's got to be something that connects you. And once you get that connection, everything, it becomes more authentic, right? Your relationship, your interaction becomes more authentic. And then it's very simple at that point to direct people to what you want them to do, without going into all of the details.
Yes.
It's literally that, you just literally connect. But when you're connecting, it's authentic. It's done with love. With every person that comes across your way, you should find something that you like about that person, even if it's something that even if you do not like that person, there's got to be something that you like about them. And then that just opens your heart. It's going to open their heart. You're going to be able to connect. And then it's very simple to direct people to what you need.
Yeah.
Some people call it manipulation. I know it's not.
Oh gosh, what's the book? There's the Robert Cialdini book. What's that one called again? Similar concept in the sense of understanding where the person's coming from, what their goals are in life and desires are, and connecting with that. And then, ultimately you're using that to develop a relationship with that person. And we all have an end goal as far as the relationship that we're creating in the exam room. And then direct. And when you say direct, what does that mean? If you were to expand on direct a little bit.
To me, direct is making sure that they get what you feel is best for them, but also bear in mind what their needs are based on what you've connected with them, right? So let's take, for example, I had a patient come in and we connected on the fact that, he has a cottage and he's out there during the summer, blah, blah, blah. And he came in just for a routine eye exam. He's an older gentleman and he wears glasses. So people would never think to put this guy in like multifocals. But in my mind, I'm thinking, I know what's best for this guy. He's in multifocals. He's out at the cottage. He wears his sunglasses. He can read outside. He's at like, this is phenomenal. The guy was on cloud nine and that's what he got, right? So directing them to what you think is best for them and what they need. And it becomes very simple once you've connected.
Yeah. Awesome. The Cialdini book is called Persuasion. So I just remember now.
There's a nicer word than manipulation.
Yeah. And well, that's what he says in the book too, is like people will say that this is ways to manipulate, but really it's, we all have goals in life. Okay. Let's just be honest about this. We're running a business. As long as you're doing it from the right place and the things that you're offering your patient, like you just suggested, multifocals are going to help them make the person's life better. You're not just trying to swindle him, then it's okay. Right. So also now I know that I'll find you at a cottage in the summer. Is that correct?
Not me, that guy.
I just thought I thought that was the thing you connected with him on. So I was like, okay.
You'll find me in lots of places in the summer, but I connected on the fact that he likes being outdoors.
Yeah, fair enough. That's fair. Yeah. The other thing that I was learning a little bit about is what you call the six senses. And I imagine that the sixth sense is not like the movie The Sixth Sense. You're not seeing dead people. So if you could share with me what the sixth sense is.
Well, your 5 regular senses and then your subconscious. So Sixth Senses, Sixth Senses is a team building event that I created with one of my vision therapists. So it started with, I love hosting different types of events, and even for my birthday, I like to have different extravagant ideas. And so I showcased this one event for my birthday and it was successful. So I tried it on my team for a Christmas party, and the beauty of it is working with all your senses. You realize the importance of the visual sense and you understand, you really become very connected with your team, and you get to explore the subconscious that we might not be aware of and really understand the patterns of why people are the way they are within your own team. So it went really well. So we decided to do it, for team building events for other people. And then actually we went out of our way, and I even do it privately to anyone and anywhere. So I did it to I think I picked 16 complete strangers and put them in a room and had this event. And it was phenomenal. People, honestly, before I started, I actually thought I was going to cry because I thought, what the hell am I doing? These people are never going to get connected. They were from all walks of life, like completely different. And it was phenomenal. And I ran into one of the guys actually just a couple of months ago. And he was just like, oh my God, do you remember me? And I said, yeah. And he said, if you ever want to host another event, you can do it in my backyard. I have this oasis out there. And it was the best event I've ever been to. So it's a lot of fun.
Cool. Wow. Okay. So team building, that Sixth Senses thing is a team building event that helps people connect, learn more about each other, I suppose, connect on a deeper level. Is that what you'd say?
Basically, it really opens up your eyes to who all of you are and gets your team connected. So you are definitely more than just colleagues. You are more than just friends. You really become a family.
Awesome. Let's change gears. Well, actually not changing gears that much. It's funny how sometimes the topics kind of lead into one another. So talking about subconscious and sort of less tangible parts of ourselves. One of the things I love about you is your energy. Okay. So, and this is something that I really notice and I respect in certain people. I feel it in. You can connect differently with somebody who, you feel their energy. And it's so funny because 10 years ago, I thought that was all just foo-foo stuff. But my wife is the one who's really helped me understand. And now you can, you get that feeling you can feel somebody's energy, or you can feel the energy.
Absolutely.
Sometimes you can say the energy left the room or energy got stepped up, and you can feel that. And I've definitely become a lot more aware of that. I feel like there's kind of 2 different ways of looking at energy. There's the get up and I got energy to physically hit the day. But there's the other energy where you just feel somebody's presence. I'd love to hear your thoughts on both of those, and how do you keep both of them firing on all cylinders?
Wow. Okay. So and this is something I teach my children right now as well, because I want them to really understand the power of energy, right? The power of your thoughts, the power of positive thinking, the power of you can create anything you want. And it's really funny because we were on vacation with a bunch of people, and then my daughter says to me, she goes, "Mommy, are you a witch?" And I was like, and I said, "Yeah, I am. Why?" She goes, "Well, you seem to get everything you want whenever you want it." I go, "Yeah, it's very simple. You truly want something, you have your heart wide open, you're gonna get it, right?"
That's amazing.
So yeah, so they see it, they sense it. So how do I keep my energy up? I think one of the biggest things is you need to seriously be true and authentic to yourself. Okay. So I don't ever try and get myself in any place. I don't ever try and do something. My heart's wide open to what I want to do and how I want to support people. And so things just show up. Absolutely, you need to create a path and try and get somewhere, right? But it's always done from a very positive way. And what my parents taught me when I was younger is that the more you give in life, the more you'll get. And I think just following principles like that, it keeps my energy up. I have more, and and we talked about the internal, and the internal can be so many things. It's you as a person, but it's also you and your family unit. And then same thing at the office, it's you and your office unit. So I make sure I'm always taken care of. And so I am always number one, which, yes, I have my children, but I always made sure I made time for myself. I made time for my husband. We always had date night, because a lot of times people are like, oh, it's all about the kids. It's all about the kids. Mm-hmm. That's how I keep myself energetic. If I need space, I need to go somewhere, I do it for me. People say, oh, you don't bring your husband to your conferences or anything. No, that's my time, So you have to be really important. Like it's important to always make sure you have time for yourself, and whatever calls to you, you go and do that. Mm-hmm. And then when I'm at home, like I've always made sure I'm at home. I have time to always have dinner with my children. Wednesday night's the only time I work late, and that's the only time they have dinner without me. But I ensure that my family unit's secure. When I first had my babies, I stayed home for an entire year. Not like I'd work, but I never went out in the evening. I never went out because I wanted to make sure that they knew what their bedtime routine was, whether it was me or it was my husband. And so if one of us was missing, they were secure. So they felt secure. So if I know my internal secure, my home secure, I can be doing whatever I want to do in my life. And I have the energy to do it because I'm not worried about those other things. Same with my office, right? I make sure my manager knows what's happening. My team's taken care of. Is my internal secure in the office? I can leave. There was a point where I was traveling twice a month. I was not in the practice. And yet it was still growing. But why? Because that energy that I would bring back and the energy I would leave with, it was always up there. So people feel that energy. It's magnetic, right? It makes you want to be part of it. It makes you want to grow. There's so much I could talk about for the energy.
Well, I'm happy to go on as long as you want, but so that's really important though. There's for me anyways, what I'm taking from what you're saying, that same kind of analogy maybe gets overused a little bit, but like the airplane analogy, right? You put your mask on first, then you put the other person, right? You need to make sure that you are feeling fulfilled and healthy and everything that you need to, in your mind and your body and so on. And then you can share that with other people. I feel like that's definitely very, very true. But like, let's say somebody's feeling like they don't have that magnetic, I know it's hard to kind of say, oh, well, here's step 1, 2, 3, but like, how do you feel like, what's like an easy low hanging fruit to kind of get your energy to a point where you think people can want to connect with you a little bit more?
Oh, wow. So for a person to somehow figure it out.
Well, not to be like somebody's like walks in a room and all of a sudden everyone's looking at him, but like, I don't know. Is there something that you think?
What are you talking about there, Harbir?
I know. I'm like doing all these weird, like sensual moves.
Why aren't you looking at me?
Look at me, please. No, I just mean, just generally to keep good, sort of that energy field, positive, would you say meditation? Would you say exercise? Would you say something else that you're doing that is helping
all
with
of the above, right? Yeah. Like, listen, we all know exercise, natural endorphins. So you need to do that, right? Meditation, I don't do it. I try. It goes up and down. It quiets your mind. It helps you focus. Personally, for me, what do I feel like I'm attracted to when other people come in or I gravitate towards people is when they're just themselves.
Mm.
And so I think for every person, if they feel they want to be more energetic or have that magnetic feeling with others, is you need to ask yourself, okay, who am I? What are my values? Going through your own values is a huge learning, a huge, huge learning. That was one of the things I did a few years ago. Once you know what your values are, you really start to understand who you are and what your purpose is. And I'll give you an example, and this might work, is one of my values is friends versus family, is friends and love. And when I did my husband's, his was family. And there's a reason why I don't have family as one of my values. But it really started to click for me why, if we have an argument, why when he's talking about his family, why it's so important to him when I don't get that. Because for me, I don't value it the same way. So I think for a person to really understand their energy is really understand who you are and your values are, and live and abide by your values. You don't need to, just because my values, love, connect, inspire, and empower, that doesn't need to be yours, for example. So you find out what your values are. And once you really start to live and breathe your values, people automatically are connected to you because you're no longer trying to figure out who you are. You're just you.
When we spoke on the phone, I don't know, a couple of weeks back, I said, how, and I just basically the same thing. How do you keep your energy? Like, and can I just repeat exactly what you said? Because
Sure.
just be your authentic self, honey. Those are the exact words that you said to me on the phone. I was like, all right.
True. It's
so
true.
It's good. What's great is that you basically said the exact same thing, but in a few more words here. But it makes sense, right? If you're being true to yourself, then you do shed some of that weight and that excess energy that you're using to try to be whatever the other thing is, maybe that you're trying to be. So,
and people trust you, right? And so when people trust you, and this can even go back to the business, when you're being your authentic self, you're running by your own values, people trust you. So why do industry come and they speak to me? Yeah, my numbers show that I'm doing really well, but also they trust me. So I'm not going to say one thing or another to another person. I am who I am. I'm going to say it the way I am. And you build that trust, right?
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. I know those are weird. Like sometimes it's hard to tap into some of those because it's such an intangible thing. I feel like it's hard to put it into words sometimes, but thank you for doing that. I think that's a topic that when I start having that conversation with people, even people that I don't know that well, it feels like people want to talk about that. Like everybody wants to understand that better. It's a lot more, it's a topic that people think about more, I think, than maybe we used to. And we understand collectively, I think they understand the power of that, having, energy and so on, these types of things. So before I go on to, I usually ask 2 questions at the end of every podcast episode. Before I go on to that, how can people connect with you? Where should I direct them? How you like how I did that? If people wanted to connect with you, how would they do that? Online or wherever else?
So you can email me at kiranramesh.ca. That's probably the best way. I'm on LinkedIn, Dr. Kiran Ramesh. Yes, I have an Instagram. Social media for me, again, that's not me being authentic. And that's why you see posts from me like every 3 months or every, I'm not, to me, it's not me. I don't like to be near my phone at the end of the day. So yeah, you can connect with me there and send me a contact, and then I'll send you my phone number and my email, and that'll be the best way to chat with me. And I love, I actually love chatting with people. I don't like to just sit there and message, like, call me, come see me, let's go hang out, let's party. If you want, if there's a good party, you'll find me there.
Let's party. Yes, that is definitely you being true to you. I like that. Well, on that note, Len, I'll, just easy way to connect is come to Vegas, right? And see everybody at Vision Expo.
Vision Expo, I'll be there, honey.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so if you'd like to connect with Kiran
at kiranramesh.ca.
Kiran at kiranramesh.ca. That's Kiran, and last name is Ramesh for those who are not watching. All right, so the last 2 questions that I like to ask every guest. Number 1.
You can even go onto my website, so kiranramesh.ca, and there you go. The contacts up there too.
Perfect. Good. Someone's cool when they have their own website with their own name.
Yeah.
Although it is becoming more common these days.
I know.
All right,
we're branding themselves. Go on.
That's good. Branding, personal branding. I could talk about that all day long.
There you go.
You're doing great. So the first of the last 2 questions. If we could step in a time machine and we could go back to a point in your life where you felt like maybe you were struggling. If you're comfortable sharing that particular moment, please do. If not, at least if you could tell us, what advice would you give to yourself at that difficult time?
Okay, so I'm going to try and say this without crying.
Oh.
So if I went back to a point in my life where I was struggling, was when my parents were not on board with who I was and pretty much abandoned me. Or I was in a house where I felt like I was suffocating and had to make a decision on whether I was going to live and be me or if I was going to follow societal norms. I'm someone who practices what they preach. And I think would I change anything? The advice that I give to myself is you are doing the right thing because you're choosing to be you. And I made the right decision. I chose to be me. I chose to forego what society says and made the decision that I wanted to make. I mean, everything worked out in the end. Everything's positive now. Everyone came back into my life. And the great thing was the learnings that happened after the fact were the thanks that I got for people saying, thank you for opening the doors to something bigger for us. And I mean, I guess to put some context behind it is I married someone who's Indian, but they're just of a different religion. And so my parents were very strict on, we want the same religion. We want the same, area of where you're from. And so in certain ways, it can get pretty scary at times. And so, for everyone to come back and say, thank you for just teaching us it's love that matters. It's not anything else. So yeah, I would, it's the same thing. Just be authentic. Don't care about, you don't have to worry about this box. Society's created this box. Think about what you want to do, what you want to create, find ways to maneuver around the box. It's the same thing that happened with the pandemic. You can choose to be controlled by what you hear, or you can choose to say, oh my God, there's all these opportunities that happen versus wham, now we're stuck, right? So try and look for those little holes and go beyond and create your own world.
Yeah, that's incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. I bet that's a message that so many people need to hear so regularly is like, be you, stick with it, do what feels genuinely right and true for you. That's amazing. And I can, being from the same kind of background, I can understand, at least, I've witnessed it. I can't, obviously, as a guy, obviously is a little bit different, unfortunately, in our culture, but either way, thank you so much for sharing that. Mm-hmm. So the final question is, everything that you've accomplished. Pardon me?
I said bum, bum, bum.
Oh yeah, the drum roll.
Drum roll, yeah.
The final question is,
Mm-hmm.
everything you've achieved in your career, in your personal life, everything that's going on, how much of it would you say is due to luck and how much is due to hard work?
All of it's due to hard work. How much is due to luck? I don't know. I don't know. That's a hard question. Here's how I'm going to answer it, because I look at people that do really well and I hear them say they're really, really lucky. And I look at them and I think to myself, but they've worked really hard for this and they're really genuine and they are who they are. And so I think we just like to use that because we assume we're lucky and we think we don't deserve everything we get. But I think we absolutely deserve it, and none of us are good at receiving. And the reason why we deserve it and we're good at what we do is because we work hard, but because we're also true and we have that path and we follow. I mean, how many times I have to repeat myself? We're just genuine to who we are. And when you are, you become like those big leaders are always who they are, right? They don't try and change themselves, but then they also work hard too. So I don't think they're lucky. I think they're authentic and they work hard.
Do you think the saying you're lucky is humility, is a form of humility?
I think so.
Being humble?
I think so. So. I would have never thought about it until if I look at people that say they're lucky, and I'm like, no, you're not. You're so sweet. You work hard. You don't understand how amazing you are. And I think people just, they're humble. They just don't realize it too, right?
Yeah. Excellent. My guess after, getting to know you and seeing everything you've done, I would say, it's all hard work too. From your perspective, you've worked very, very hard to achieve everything you have. And congratulations on all of the Anytime I say the word success, I do this because everybody's got a different definition of what success is. But congratulations on all the good things that have happened and continue to happen for you. And I hope there's so much more. I'm going to feel really good about, I'm going to get those, the warm and fuzzies every time I see you achieving something. It's going to help me feel good. So please keep doing more. Any final words, any last things that you'd like to share before we wrap up?
No, thank you for having me. This was great. And, it was nice to spend some time with you and just optometry world. I hope this helps you out. Reach out to either me or to Harbir. And let's grow this world and let's make it stronger and better.
Perfect. That's the best way to end it. I love it. Thank you, everybody who's been watching and listening. Thank you for all the support. Again, don't forget to share it. Take a screenshot, throw it up on Instagram, put a post on LinkedIn, whatever you do. Hit like, hit subscribe, leave a comment. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in to the 2020 podcast, Canada's #1 optometry podcast. I will see you guys in the next episode.
Bye.